Gentlemen, to the next breakout session. I'd like to inform all ladies and gentlemen that the next session is somehow what all of you been waiting for, because we'll be talking about future education through the lens of education framework. What are the best and then the great frameworks that are being developed, and also why the traditional financing models are being challenged by the new and innovative ones. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this very opportunity to invite Dr. Trinut Paichayon Vijit from the Faculty of Economics at Ram Khamhaeng University, Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to our session on Education Framework Innovative Financing for Future Education. So my name is Trinut Paichayon Vijit. I'll be the moderator of today's session. We are thrilled to have diverse and distinguished panel with us today, representing key stakeholders in shaping the future of education, both from the public sector and private sectors. Let me introduce you to our panelists. First, we have Ms. Phai Veshiachai, Head of Asia Market Development of the GSG Impact. And next up, we have Ms. Siri Jongdi, Associate Director of the Equitable Education Fund, Thailand. And finally, we have Ms. Janet Rungsittikul, Senior Marketing Manager of Brand Purpose and KFC Foundation. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. So to kick things off in this session, I would like to invite Ms. Phai from GSG Impact to begin with an overview of innovative financing for development projects and how it's been used all around the world, the best practice, and what we should be watching out for.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think we're almost in the afternoon. So it's a pleasure to be here today and to be on stage with all female panelists. Really honored to be joining all of you here. And thank you, Dr. Tiranut, for having us. I actually want to start before we get into the different models of innovative financing, just to introduce myself a little bit. As you know, my name is Omkawe Chiachai. Most people call me Phai. You can also do that. It would be easier. I have been working for most of my life in sort of the field that's related to education, both from the formal and also non-formal sector. I started my studying international development education, really wanting to be a teacher like my mom, because my mom was a teacher and she also taught in university. And then my first job was to work at the UNICEF in Canada. At the time, global education and global curriculum was a new thing. And so I was helping with a project to integrating global elements into Canadian curriculum at the time with UNICEF, so working on the policy side. Then I moved back to Thailand, and I started to work in private sector. I joined one of the edutainment center called Kidsania Bangkok. I don't know if you've heard of Kidsania before. It was an edutainment center. It's a global franchise from Mexico, having in many countries around the world. And it was a space for kids to come and learn how to role play to be different profession. And so I thought it was such a really innovative and cool thing, because then kids learn how to learn through play and through doing and being in the professions that they wish to be when they grow up, right? Then I switched to the public sector, and I tried to help set up one of an international school here. I left after that, and then I started a social enterprise with my sister called Hotel Cream Bangkok. Cream comes from creative minds. So it was a small children's center learning space that helped and focused on kids' literacy. So I'm telling you all of this and all of my background mainly because I want to say that I have been trying different paths in the education sector and trying to find my ways in doing a small part in improving education. And I guess what I learned and what I found is that there are not many, not enough anyways, educational programs and educational models. And I think part of that is because there are not many financing that would goes into education. Partly because when you think about financing in education, most of the time you leave it for the federal support, like government, like teachers and schools, and sometimes we feel like we feel a bit discouraged that to try and solve something in education is a bit too big for us to do something, right? And then from the investment side, when you invest in education, when you put finance into education, it's a very long-term thing. It takes a long time before you start to see the fruits that come out of your investment. And so I don't want to end to start on the pessimistic note, but I want to say that there are some of the best practice and models that have been done around the world that are trying to finance social projects and education projects. And I wanted to be able to share with you a little bit today. So about what I do now, I work for a global think tank organization called the GSG Impact. It comes from Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, and GSG Impact for short. And we're a UK charity organization headquartered in London. And the organization started off in 2013 out of the G7 initiative. At the time, it was G7 country plus one more country, so it was all the G8 countries that sits together, trying to think of ways that they could bring their countries to know more about impact investment, put their heads together and think about what are some of the ways that they could mobilize capital and put it towards impact and social projects. So that's how our organization started. Then each of the 8 countries at the time, set up what they call advisory board for impact. And this advisory board consists of people from different stakeholders in the ecosystem, people from the 5 pillars of the ecosystem. So people that could be representing the supply side, so financial institutions, banks, asset management, people who represent the demand side, like corporates and entrepreneurs, intermediaries that help facilitate capital between the two, market builders like educational institution, media, association of lawyers, and policymakers, those who can help to scale the work of impact and investment. So all of the 5 pillars of the ecosystem comes together in each country. And then they think of 2 or 3 strategies that they want to do to prioritize how to accelerate an impact investment market in their country. So it's been 11 years now. We started with 8 countries. Now we expand a little bit. So now in each of the countries, altogether 45 countries, we have advisory board that focusing on the work on impact. And out of these 45 countries, we have 11 countries that are based in Asia Pacific, and Thailand is included. We've recently set up a coalition group called Thailand Investing for Impact, which actually EEF is also part of that coalition to try and see how we could work on mobilizing capital towards impact in Thailand. So some of the examples, and I'll go into a little bit more details as well, but some of the things that we do is, right at this moment, we've worked with more than 2,000 impact leaders around the world, working in partnership, hands in hands, to try to support different ways that we could advocate for impact investment. We have more than 7 countries that have worked on regulatory framework, because for impact investment to grow and to flourish, you need to think of creating an enabling environment for policy. We have 19 countries now that have worked on innovative financing models, what we call a fund of funds, wholesale fund models, and have raised over $3 billion all combined in trying to be a catalytic capital that goes towards impact. So there are many different ways and interventions that all the 45 countries that are working in partnership are working on, but the 4 major interventions that we do, I touched on it a little bit. One is on market awareness, because as you can imagine, when talking about impact investment, it's very new. People still not understanding the difference between ESG finance, sustainable finance, and impact finance. And so the big part of the work of the people that we work with is to educate the ecosystem on what it is that when we talk about impact. Raise awareness about how we can put impact at the heart of every decision, whether it's government decision, whether it's a corporate operation. How do we think of impact in everything that we do? Because as you know, we live in the world now where climate change and so many different struggles and challenges, right? We need to think more in the impact mindset. How we include impact business in the supply chain. Maybe think about how we can include social enterprise into the government supply chain to help creating a better social enterprise ecosystem in the country. And most importantly, how do we move capital, like Ajahn Thiranut said, from traditional investment and more towards impact investment? We work on policy environment, think of the different ways that we can work with governments, think of sticks and carrots. Sometimes we need sticks and we need rules, for example, for corporates to be able to disclose their data on sustainability data. Or we need carrots, like incentives, to help incentivize investors, to be able to think and invest more into projects like education projects and social projects. We need regulations on climate disclosures that could help to for people to think a little bit more on sustainability. We need to bring new market players into the field. We need to, one of the work that we do is to mainstream impact. And to mainstream impact means that you're not just talking with a group of impact investors. We have some, very small number, not a lot. But we need to hit the major players like large corporations, like asset management that holds a lot of capital in their hands, and try to mainstream impact by bringing in new actors into the field. We need to think about new innovative financing models. What are ways that we could bring more capital together and put it to where it's needed the most? And last, but also very important, is the availability of data. Because when you're talking about data, it also allows us to be able to measure and to make sure that the work that we do on impact is not just impact wash, it's not just greenwashing. You probably heard a lot about greenwashing, but we also have blue washing and impact washing, right? So we need data to be able to tell us that the work that we do is creating positive impact and not creating, on a side, a negative impact for the environment or for the people. We need to know how much capital is lying around in the market. So to be able to align the way that we collect data with different countries and with different stakeholders, allow us to be able to size the market. We don't know at the time how much impact capital is lying in our country, in Thailand at the moment. So these are some of the things that we do together with the partners that we work with in other countries. And I won't go to all of this in details, but I just want to touch on some of the models that we have done. I already touched on the work on policy. We work quite closely with the G7 Sustainable Finance Working Group in helping to educate and helping to think of different mechanisms that could help countries to think more towards impact. In ASEAN, we work with the 10 ASEAN governments, and we partner with UNESCAP to look at how do we integrate inclusivity into the company's operation and practices through ASEAN Inclusive Business initiative that the UNESCAP started. We work on a couple of other partnerships together with other stakeholders to come up with result-based financing, outcome partnerships, working groups, helping people to be able to share best practices and learnings across countries. And I mentioned wholesale fund. It's one of the mechanisms that we do, and I'll tell you a little bit more after this. But we work with 12 countries, and I think now it's increased to about 19 countries, to raise capital that could then be used towards social impact. So these are some of the different ideas. I know I throw a lot of words to you, and I'm happy to be able to go into more details about all of this. But just to show that there are many people around the world that are trying to find ways to address impact finance and putting money to where it's needed the most. So I want to show to you a model that has been used in many countries. I mentioned wholesale fund, an impact wholesaler. And wholesale fund means funds of funds. It's the funds that invest into other funds or other intermediaries, like invest into private equity fund, venture capital funds, or it can also directly invest into an impact business or social enterprises. This is a model that actually originated from the UK. I'm not sure if there's somebody from the UK here, but if you're from the UK, you can Google Big Society Capital, or now recently just this year it changes the name to Better Society Capital, and it's an organization that originates this impact wholesale fund. When it was started in the UK, what they did was they unlocked unclaimed assets. And by unclaimed assets, I mean money that lies in the dormant bank account that have not been used for many, many years. So the government figured out a way, and of course there's regulatory framework that needs to be adjusted to be able to allow this to happen. But for money that's lying in accounts for many, many years, they were able to unlock 400 million pounds to put together in a pool fund, and to try and use this pool fund that then invests into social impact businesses and programs. They also asked other banks, the major banks in the UK. At the time, there were 4 other banks, and I remember 3. So there were Barclays, Standard Chartered, HSBC, and one more bank, which I don't remember the name. But these 4 banks then put additional 20 million pounds into the pool fund. So altogether, Big Society Capital have a fund, 600 million pounds, that invest into social investment intermediaries. And up till today, they have also used and transformed into different other funds as well. So you can try to look them up. But the one important, the characteristic of the impact wholesale fund, I mentioned that it invests into other funds and intermediaries. Usually, it draws from other investment as well, in the form of blended finance. So like the UK model, they also get money from private banks and financial institutions. Sometimes the money comes from charitable capital, like grants from philanthropy. Sometimes it comes from commercial capital, like private organization, corporate investments. Sometimes it's public capital, so it comes from aid agencies, DFIs, development banks, government budget, and all together put into the same pot. But one important thing is that it needs to measure the impact and manage the impact. So from the get-go, you need to set an indicator from the beginning. And it needs to help to educate the ecosystem and develop market as well. So you can see up here 2 other countries that have replicated the model. I won't go into all these details, but just to show that in Japan, they have allowed the funds that were sitting in inactive bank accounts for more than 10 years, and they have put together, I think the data shows that every year they have about 120 billion yen per year of dormant asset. And they put together into a fund and set up an organization called Janpia to manage the fund of funds. And so Janpia has then allocated close to 678 million baht in total to support programs that are grassroots projects, nonprofit, social ventures, and they have a short-term initiative in a couple of years ago to support vulnerable groups that were affected by COVID-19. In Korea, the model is quite similar. They've set up an organization called SVS, the Korea Social Value and Solidarity Foundation, to manage impact investment wholesaler. And they were able to raise funds 50% from the government and the other 50% from private sector, and deploy capital in both private equity and also in debts. So impact loans. Through that, in Korea, they were able to support 280 social enterprises and social conscious projects. And they were receiving money from 20 different pool sources. So this is another model that I will not go into the detail because we have someone from EEF here that will be sharing a lot more about this. But Education Outcome Fund is actually a sister organization to GSG Impact. Our organization actually helped to incubate Education Outcome Fund. And it's essentially a fund that was set up to focus on outcomes because they saw from data that for education projects that is trying to work to solve education challenges, not many of them have successfully reached the outcome. And so they wanted to make sure that they set up an outcome fund so that people that are putting money in it will actually see that their money actually makes a difference. And hopefully that will incentivize more and more people to come and put money into the outcome fund. So I'll let Khun Phai share more about that. And this is my last slide. I won't go into all these details, but just to show that there are many countries that have worked on different modeling. For example, in Turkey, they have a very high rate of unemployment rate, and they have worked to set up a first impact fund to focus on youth unemployment. In the UK, they were able to bring together impact investors, blended finance, together with DFIs and mainstream asset managers to raise 5 trillion USD in assets to tackle the just transition challenge. In France, you see that they have set up an outcome fund to support social and environmental projects, and they're actually leading the work together with some of the EU countries and development bank to set up an EU social entrepreneurship fund called EUSEF. In Ghana and Nigeria, they're trying to replicate the same fund-of-fund impact wholesale fund models that the UK set up. And there are many more examples. I encourage you to look up our website, GSG Impact, and you will be able to get a little bit more of the different ways in which we work with other stakeholders to try and address the issues of financing social investment projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Phai. So thank you very much, Ms. Phai, for sharing with us the background, the overview, and practices of different kind of innovative financing, and especially the work that GSG Impact has been doing. So next up, let's turn our attention to the government sector. May I introduce you to Ms. Siri? She will share her view on the insight on how governments view innovative financing and how it's been used in Thailand especially.
It's an honor to be here for this session. So just very briefly as well as an introduction about myself. I've always worked in the government sector, previously I've worked at the Ministry of Finance, and the curiosity to see how financing mechanisms can really contribute in creating better impact, and especially in the education sector, was really the starting point for me to come into this job. About the EEF itself and the organization that I work for, my current position right now is the Associate Director of the Research Institute under the EEF, or the Education Equity Fund in Thailand. And just before we go into the presentations about the content about why innovative finance matters to the organization, maybe I can introduce a little bit about what the EEF does and how we do things, so that we understand a little bit more why we are interested and so keen on exploring this idea. Firstly, the EEF's mission is really to set up just 5 years. EEF is a new organization and just set up around 5 years ago. And the mission is to catalyze change for a sustainable impact. So the highlight here is that the EEF's role is not the owner of the equitable education agenda, but rather our role is to facilitate, to ease and to empower the stakeholders to understand, to participate, and to lead the equity agenda in their own line of responsibilities. And so to be able for us to kind of function in that capacity, we have a few strategies, and we have some governing structure and tools that support us in doing so. So firstly, for us to be able to work in multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary, working in area-based functions, we have an independent management board that's appointed by the Prime Minister, and consists of various government agencies, ministries from education, finance, social development, human security, public health, and interior. Also on the board, we have experts from various sectors, including those from the academic background, private sectors, and civil society. Furthermore, the EEF can also take donations, and this is really helpful for us, as it provides us with a gateway for us to kind of forge this collaboration with private sectors in what we do. And lastly, we use research and data as an integral part, or we try to as much as we can, in the project design, monitoring, evaluations, in guiding us into formulations of policy recommendations and furthering collaborations for scaling innovations. Now, at the end of the day, what are the key results or outcomes are we looking for? So we can kind of summarize this into 4 aspects. Firstly, we want to see improved learning education, access to education, and reducing risk of dropouts. This means that we want to improve on the mechanisms to identify and to target those that are at risk or are not in education. Secondly, we want to see lower learning outcome gaps. And this could mean, this could happen due to the location of the student or the learner, the type of school they're attending, or it could be due to their health or readiness, for instance. Thirdly, how do we make education that is relevant to everyone? Because learners have a variety and different needs. This could mean that we need to expand on the type of content that we are providing to them, the approach that we're taking, as well as making sure that these kind of learning experiences are aligned with the objectives of the learners, whether it be about moving on into higher education or whether it be about finding employment. And lastly, is to bring about the learnings from these pilots and projects to scale. And this could be achieved by expanding projects with more partners or working at the policy level to direct changes through relevant agencies. Now, when we talk about innovative finance, the UN gave a definition about this, that it's about the mechanisms and solutions which increase the volume, efficiency, and effectiveness of financial flows. But to summarize what innovative finance means to the EEF, I think we can kind of conceptualize that into 3 points that we are interested in exploring. One category of innovative finance that is the EEF use is what we call the result-based financing. Essentially, this is where financing is used to encourage change of stakeholders towards the desired outcomes and outputs that we have set up. This leads to my first concept or first idea of what the EEF is interested in, is using innovative financing to create incentives so that we can change the behavior of our target groups, which could be the students, the learners, or the families that we are engaging in. The programs that we've listed out in this page are the 2 example projects that we are using. One, maybe a bit more familiar to the people in the education sector here, is a conditional cash transfer, which is a cash transfer that we provide to students from poor family backgrounds that are often at risk of dropping out. Here in this case, the payment is made on a condition that they attend schools on a regular basis, and that data of their health is provided on an annual basis. The second example here is an online reading intervention aimed at improving reading habits of students. On this project, the EEF has been working together with UNESCO and Chulalongkorn University, and we have been exploring the potential of digital learning platforms to complement classroom learnings. The platform is essentially a large library where students can select a wide selection of fiction and non-fiction books, and the teachers are there to provide advice and guidance so that the books selected are relevant to their proficiency levels and interest. Because the reading is done entirely online, data is being collected on the students' behavior, and therefore their reading milestones are then later used to calculate the financial rewards for these students. The students that get the most rewards are those that read regularly, they read for longer hours, and they have improved reading behavior as compared to their last period of assessment. What we have learnt from this project is that this kind of intervention works really well with students that are already very keen on reading. And so this tool for them allows us increased access into reading materials that maybe were not accessible before. Apart from that, we also found that it is more effective with older learners, and if we can kind of, we also experimented with different payment techniques. So this, instead of paying them at the end of the month, or post-payment, we changed the payment so it's prepayment, and we found that to be quite effective in encouraging better reading behavior. As well as that, we've also tested out on non-financial interventions, such as if we get the learners to plan and make self-commitment to their learning schedules, reading schedules. This has also been quite effective in improving reading outcomes. At the moment for this project, we are waiting on the SRI evaluation results for our latest project, which we have engaged with students in non-formal education. Now, the second idea that we've adopted in terms of the innovative finance area is to see how this concept of result-based financing can help us in incentivizing the work that we do with service providers. And so changing the way that we relate to them or the relationship that we have with them. Result-based financing here is also sometimes known as outcome-based contract Pay for Success, or previously commonly known as the Social Impact Bond. Essentially, in this model, there are key three features. Firstly, there are indicators of success agreed upon at the beginning of the project. Secondly, there is a third-party evaluator that will verify results at the end. And thirdly, there is an element of risk sharing between the involved parties in the contract. The objective here for EEF was really to kind of experiment and explore how we can use such models to drive projects that are focused on driving outputs and outcomes. And with private sector participation in this model, this can also lead to, moving closer towards the financial models where social impact investment is possible. So aside from donations, this is an added option for private sector engagement. So to zoom in a little bit about what this OBC model looks like and to compare it with the traditional granting procedure, you can see that from the top of the page, the traditional granting procedure starts off with the grantor providing this upfront capital to the service provider, and the payments are gradually dispersed based on the cost of activities that is run by the service provider. And these activities are targeted at the target groups. However, in an outcomes-based contract, the service providers work together with the funders at the beginning of the project to ensure that the pre-agreed outputs and outcomes can be met. So designing the delivery of their services as well as providing the funding to kickstart the project. So once the project finishes, or along the way, the evaluator comes in to collect this data and also at the same time providing this feedback of data to the service providers in a timely manner so that they can also kind of adapt their services to ensure that they're meeting their targets. At the end, the EEF or the outcome payer will only pay once the results have met the pre-agreed levels. Currently, we have been using this model to scale a proven intervention for early childhood. So to scale the intervention towards 80 disadvantaged centres across the country, the program is expected to bring children that are falling behind in key development areas, such as physical, language, and executive function, to have access to activities and be in the environment that better promotes their development and making sure that they are ready for formal education in future. So far, what have we learnt from this project? For the EEF itself, especially working together with the different stakeholders when we are in the stage of designing of the project, whether it be the funders, the service providers, the evaluators, this has really kind of create this alignment and mindset of being outcome focused at the start of the project. As well as that, aside from the alignment among the people that we are working together, we've also looked beyond us to see how we have set the KPIs and how they align with policy measures as well. And so this really kind of puts us to have a better understanding of how the intervention kind of fits in the context of this wider system. Having access to data in a timely manner whilst they're still doing the intervention has also been beneficial to the service providers and funders to have that feedback so that they can adjust their work and ensuring that their targets are met at the end. Although there are challenges in setting up this kind of project, and the design phase and the setting up does take time due to its nascent period, and we imagine that if we do take up and scale up on this kind of model, like the experience that Khun Phai has shared with us in this previous presentation, we understand that this a larger scale kind of model, such as the one that's just shown, can kind of help us to understand a variety of interventions, as well as to support the sustainability and development of various service providers that we can engage in under this model. Now, lastly, the third objective why EEF is interested in innovative finance is about securing funding, especially funding for medium to long term, to support the scale up where interventions we want to push along the policy value chain. So things that we want to communicate to the policy levels that this intervention works at a pilot level and it also works at a scale level. And so for these kind of things to happen, we may need the collaboration of outside funders to be able to enable us to do such a thing. So the Zero Dropout program is a unique program and a good example of this. Here, Sansari is a listed property development company, has raised funds by using the traditional corporate bond issuance and placing these proceeds into a joint account that can be dispersed to EEF as donations over a period of 3 years. The Zero Dropout program is a pilot, and the objective is to kind of create an area-based model placed in Ratchaburi, and this is one of the extensions of EEF's own project about out-of-school children and youth. And so in the implementation, it has been driven by the setup of an area-based education network that allows a collaboration of multi-sectoral organizations at a local level. The Zero Dropout is now being scaled at a national level. So in this year, the Thailand Zero Dropout program will expand into 25 more provinces across the country. And in the next year, we expect to see expansion of the program to cover the entire 77 provinces in the year after. So just to summarize the key learnings from all the work that we have kind of done, all this research and these pilots about innovative finance, I think the innovative finance concept is pretty flexible. There's a few models that you can choose from. So it's quite important that we kind of understand what the organization wants to take from these models and to kind of make that alignment. So we are designing and selecting the right tools that are appropriate for your organization. Secondly, as Khun Phai mentioned, innovative finance is a very new concept, and networks or learning communities such as GSG is really important for countries that really want to kind of embark on this new journey. And so please take advantage of these networks, and these resources have been some of the most helpful people that we have encountered in supporting us in driving these kind of initiatives. And thirdly, innovative finance, as mentioned, it's a tool, it's an added tool, it's an option. It's not necessarily appropriate for every project or everyone. So you do need to keep a lookout for your champions, the people that are really keen on experimenting on these things, as well as the projects as well, just so that we know that we are sure that we are placing these kind of tools in the location where it adds the most value. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Siri, for sharing with us the work that Thai government has been doing to improve the quality of education with the use of innovative financing. Next, we have, I would like to invite Ms. Janet to share how the private sector, the KFC Foundation, has been involved in improving the quality of education and training for children in all around the world. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here and also to be on the stage with these incredible ladies here. So thank you so much. I've learned a lot. So everyone here might think that why is KFC here? I'm not selling chicken. But actually, I just want to share today that what we're doing with Thai education is called flexible education that we are aiming for. So just before starting, I just want to share that why we're here. As mentioned, so just a bit about our founder, Colonel Sanders. I think you guys might know about him. So actually, with our brand KFC, it started with him. And if you heard a story that he success in his 60s, and he's a really fighter with a spirit fighter. And he always believes that everyone has potential. So that is a value of our company, and we believe in everyone that everyone has potential. So that's the reason why we're here, and we're not just selling chicken, but we want to also build this awareness that everyone has a potential and everyone can be succeeded. So here I'm sharing here as KFC Foundation. We registered here in Thailand. We started a couple of years ago in 2021. So with the ambition of feeding people's potential. So in here in Thailand, what we're aiming is all about empowering youth in education system. So what we do here is not just only about funding, but actually what we want to build is actually skills to help students, to young unprivileged students, to able to rely on themselves and also have the ability to take care of themselves, not just only about the funding. So here actually I want to share here is as Dr. Anut mentioned, so globally here, this is just a framework that what we do in as a company of KFC. Feeding people potential is all around the world, and we aim in two parts. This is the background of our foundation, is we help on food security, and we also help in skills and opportunity. So today what I want to share more is about skills and opportunity in Thailand that we have just started called KFC Bucket Search. A bit about KFC Bucket Search is we want to provide technical skills to help people to be their best selves. So meaning that we really want to understand students in Thailand and what they need and creating job opportunities for them in Thai society. So this is what we started in Thailand with KFC Bucket Search. So you see these guys here, super cool. So KFC Bucket Search with the name of Bucket Search means that we search for the students who people actually don't see. Means that we support zero dropout, the ambition. We find the students who are dropped out from the system and bring them back, not into the system, but actually what we say is bringing them back into the society. What does that mean? Because education needs to be flexible enough for everyone to have the opportunity to come back. It doesn't mean that only one system fits all. So what we try to help is trying to find new solutions for them to able to come back to society. We started in last year. We have done a pilot, not a pilot test, but we started to help students, 130 students in Thailand across the country, and finding them and then bringing them back. So we work closely with EF. Thank you so much for that. I think that's a main partner of helping to find these kids because as you know, once you're dropped out, the names in the system, they won't even be there. So how to help? So having a specialist on helping this is a key of finding these students. And another partner who we worked is who they call Learning Center Panyakan. So that's another party coming in again to help us create a system that able to have students to come back to society. So from this program, 130 students, we bring them in, and what we've done is actually we come in, and then trying to understand their needs. As mentioned before, not only one system fits them, because the background of students, once you know in Thailand, the majority of kids who dropped out is because of financial support and also with their family. So that's the root cause of having these problems. So it means that these kids, they still have potentials, as you see. They can still find money to help their family, because mostly when they drop out, because they have to come out and then they have to find money to help their families and also like survive for themselves. Actually, they have potential. They are really good kids, but just only that they couldn't have the time, they don't have the money to go back to the system. So that's the thing that we kind of understand them, and we want to try to make it flexible enough for them to come back again. So it means that this is, so what we created is options for them, is work and study. So once we know that these students, the problem is about the money, they don't have financial support and they don't have time. Work and study is one thing that we could help them of like balancing their time and also having money for them to go back to school. Because coming back to school is not just only about their tuition fee, it's about their uniform, it's about their lunchtime. So how could they survive? So having them with the option of work and study is an option that could help them to be more sustainable. Another option that we helped, what we call is vocational school. So this is another, I don't know what is it called, innovative, but it's another option of sharing them to know that vocational school, if you have other skills, like you want to be a barber, that's a really job. So expanding for them to know that there's other options in life that they can also pursue in. So it means that what we want to really give these students is about skills. Skills that help them to rely on themselves and be sustainable enough just beyond funding at the start. So once we get the students here in the room, so you'll see some pictures here. As mentioned, so we work with them hands-on, all of the 130 students. We bring them to a club called Bucket Search Club. We want to give them an orientation to have like a life plan preparation before. Because once you drop out, what's the problem? Coming back to society isn't easy. How can they build the confidence back again? And how could they know what's their options in their life? So what we had is, once we have these kids, we created an orientation. So working closely with therapists to let them build the confidence. We work with inspiration speakers who are like their idols to let them know that there are other options in their lives. And also we have workshops for finding their potentials. So it means that we want to expand their knowledge and their kind of perspective on the world, that people still believe in you, you still have confidence, and also there's other choices in their life that they could pursue in. So here, as mentioned before, here is the options that we created: work and study and vocational school. So at first, actually, once we created this program, we were starting at actually giving the tuition fee and fund, but actually now what we think that is really suited for these students is these two options. So as mentioned, meaning that it's a sustainable opportunity for them and able to rely on themselves after we give them the support at the beginning as a full. And then after that, we want to make sure that every student have skills, any skills that they are suited with. And as a private sector, as a corporate here, we know what the trend is and we know what the market needs. So that's also another thing that we could help them to know that there's options in life, and we collaborate, we worked with partners around to help them see the opportunities that they're in the field. So once we had like worked along hands-on with the students, one thing that is like, we also asked like a questionnaire, like, what do you want to do after, when we come back to the society? What do you want to do? Mostly they want to do like, open their own like shops, mom and pop shops, open a restaurant, a noodle shop. So which we think that it's still a really big dream too. So, and then we want to support them. So we come back into our office and we were talking like, actually, you know, working in KFC is kind of tough. If you're at the store, if you know, we also have like a curriculum that you have to learn, you have to study the books, and you also have to do practical experience testing. So what we've done is actually we talked with EF and Learning Center Panyakan in there, and then seeing that, is there an opportunity here that we could create a curriculum that really helps them? So once you're in work and study, and we have a proper education curriculum that helps them to kind of also work and also graduate in the same time. So this is a concept, what we call is flexible learning. So once you're in the program, work and study in KFC in this program, what we call is entrepreneur. Once you learn is there, you'll be able to kind of learn all of these 14 models here. So for example, we kind of make it kind of a bit cool of calling the name like food master. So actually means that you kind of learn at the back end, you know the nutrition, you learn English from all the instructions, or even if at the store, you have to be at the cashier. So all of like the finance and accounting, you also can learn there. So it means that actually it's learning from the real life experience means that it will be with them for a long time. And also at the end, they will get credit banks to transfer these real experience into credit banks so they could graduate. So it means that, for example, if they left from junior high school, they'll be able to graduate into graduate high school at the end. So that actually helps them not just only about graduation, but actually they have the real experience there. So this is one of our start that we're doing here. So, but just wanted to say here, we're not aiming for getting labor, we're not aiming for jobs, but actually what we want students to get is the experience that they will have. So now actually we have already around like 3 students here in our curriculum. We just opened in June, so our first semester just started. So I think that's a start that we want to build this flexible way of learning for, because if this is what they really need, and also helps them not just only for them, but actually I think it also helps with the companies around. So once you have the real needs, the real skills that the trend needs, that also helps as well. So that's the work and study one. Not just only KFC, but actually if you want to work and study in other places, there's some kids want to go to work with EV, work in EV field. We also support them as well. So not just only for KFC, but we also support in other areas. Secondly, as mentioned, of vocational school. So vocational school is another thing that what we help is we make sure that they have take course. Like if you want to be a barber, you have to go take course. So that's the funding that we fund, and also funding with the equipment. Or if you want to be a musician, so we'll be connecting also with experts in the industry to help them as well. So these are just some pictures that once they're in the program, what they really need is a space and also a community support for them to know that they have potential and they have skills enough. So you'll see here, once we've had an activation like in Bangkok, if they want to be a nail painting salon. So what we do, we bring their shop here and then let them do their own painting. Or if you see that another one is they want to be a musician. So we're trying to connect with partners around on where we can like bring them into the real life experience. We had a really nice music band in the South. So it's not just about only opportunities for them as a kid, but I think also other parts that is really benefiting is the community. So it's meaning that also the community accepting this kind of new way of education is also important. Because we're trying to push like this, we're trying to push this flexible learning, but another important part is also acceptance of how the new innovative learning skills is like this. So for the next part of our bucket search, what we aim is to connect with also new partners around in the corporate industry, in the private sectors, and then we want to build this as a kickstart of finding opportunities for kids. Because if we have this kind of new way of learning, but at the end, if the industry doesn't accept it, so it's not a really a sustainable way of supporting these kids. So I think the 4 things that I want to leave here is I think it's really important of starting from the students, understanding of what they need. Funding is the kickstart, is the full, but not just only that, how can we make it really sustainable enough for them to able to survive in the future? So that's one thing. Secondly, I think as currently we're working now, synchronizing everyone together, collaborating with private sectors, with public sectors, and also academic people. I think that's another important thing of it will help knowing the trend of what the market needs and also connecting with the specialist of academic part to be able to merge or find opportunities in the field that we could really help. So it's just beyond money, but it's how we can really help them in being sustainable. Third, I think as a brand, as a private sector, another thing that we could really help apart from funding is also about building the awareness. So it's a big thing that people need to know that, especially dropout students, it's a big challenge in our country. So that's a thing that we could help on building the awareness and trying to build in more companies or more partners or we call friends to come and help together. And lastly, I think it's all about perception for people. So I think one of the challenges what we face currently as we're really new is once we have these kids, how we can kind of inspire or let other people know that giving opportunities is important and how could they help. Because it's not just about, as mentioned, funding money only, but it's their time, their kind of special knowledge. I think that's also another part that everyone can help. So it doesn't mean that there's only private sectors can help, but actually we're also connecting with communities that if they have the specialties or any expert need things, they can also come in and help us as well. So that's the start of us as KFC Foundation and with KFC Bucket Search. So hopefully this is another new innovative way of helping students in the future, and hopefully we'll be having more collaboration with partners coming in the future. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ms. Jeanette, for sharing with us the flexible learning model that KFC Foundation has been doing in making impact on children's life and their adulthoods and, of course, their family. So now we have come to the second part of our session, which is questions and answers. We are open up for the questions from the floor and also online. You can use the microphone on the floor for the participants in this room. We have about 20 minutes for Q&A sessions. So what I heard from you guys, few words, which is impact, outcome, collaborations. Could you tell me a little bit more about the challenges that you have to overcome when you trying to use this innovative financing model? You know, because I understand that there's going to be a lot of learning process involved.
I'm happy to go first. Thank you for the question. And it was, first of all, let me just say, it's really nice to also see the example on the ground of what KFC Foundation is doing and what EF is doing as well. I think from my side, I'm speaking more from a bit of a macro level here. When we are trying to look into new ways of doing financing, one of the things we find, and I think this not just for education, but for a lot of other ways to finance social projects, is that a lot of people are working in silo, right? It's a very fragmented ecosystem. We actually have a lot of capital lying around in the market, but they are focusing on maybe more looking at more profit making rather than looking at the social impact side of things. So I think one of the challenges how to educate and raise awareness for the people that holds capital to actually look at, even if they just give out just 1% of the asset or of the capital that they have and move that towards something more impactful and something more sustainable, that would help shift the market a lot. So I think that's sort of my number one challenge that I find in working in this field. The other is, I feel that, and this is the things that we hear a lot from coming from the financing side, is that we, financiers and people that are investing, we don't take enough risk. Because as you see educational projects, a lot of the social development projects also, it takes time. So we actually need patient capital to invest into this type of projects. And we need more people to be able to take risks, leave the money for a longer period of time, and to be able to see, like I said in the beginning, the fruits coming out of the investment, especially for educational projects. I think the last thing for me would be, because a lot of the work we do is to foster collaboration and try to bring multi-stakeholders together. That in itself is a challenge, because you need to identify which stakeholders you bring to the table. Are they willing? Do they have willingness enough to be able to work together and give and takes, into the things that you want to do, to be able to work together in a large group of people, and for them to have that collaborative mindset to be able to work together. I'll stop there.
Maybe I'll just add on to that. From some of the experiments that actually you can also, Dr. Trinot can also add on to this, because we've been working together on these projects. I think I agree with you in terms of, I think one of the benefits of these innovative finance is really bringing together these kind of people with like-minded mindsets and working together to achieve a certain agreed outcome or goal. But at the same time, I think the level of readiness of different organizations are very different as well. And aside from having patient capital, we also have to have very patient stakeholders that are working with us and supporting us along the way. It's not just the learning of the people that are responsible for the project, but sometimes it's about bringing the organization to understand these new kind of innovative tools that can affect changes to the way the organization is thinking or working. And so sometimes this kind of collaboration does require a lot of understanding and empathy from where the stakeholder is coming from. On a different note, also maybe relevant to the Thai context as well, is about the access to reliable data that can be used for these projects. I think that was one of the major challenges when we were trying to set up the Pay for Success. What would be the benchmarks? How would we measure these success targets? And how can we be sure that they are reliable or not? And so these were a lot of the discussions that we spent a lot of time talking. And I think that although we did invest a lot of time in thinking about these things, I think it was really helpful for us in terms of kind of planning and thinking about how this project, as I mentioned, kind of fits in the wider system, where it can lead to further expansions in future. So, thank you.
To add on, so I do agree on the collaboration part. So I think that's really an important part, apart from academic part or public sectors. I think also as mentioned, so this thing we can't do it alone. So what we really need is partners to come in to help, especially like as mentioned, private sectors, other companies around, that we want to have them also be on board with us and also help in a big journey. So that's a part that we have to actually, starting with inspiring and able for them to know what the root cause is and how they could really help. So as mentioned, so it might not be just only about funding, how they could help, their skills, their time, or what is their thing that we can brainstorm together and help. So I think that's a part, that how to make everyone understand that everyone could actually help, but how they could use their specialties to come in. Another challenge inside, actually, as chair, like we have the work and study program. So it means that we really work hands-on to the stores, because these kids, they will work at the store. We have our store manager, we have their peers. how to make them understand on how they're helping these friends and coming back to the society again. So I think that's another thing, that the perception of people, not just only people around here that we kind of know of what we're doing, but how to make mass people, like the people in the field, understand as well on what we're trying to help these students in a new way for them. So I think that's a challenge for there. Another thing I think, as I'm talking here, but I think also what's important is how to really understand the students as we really go on the field, especially dropout students. There are lots of types of dropout. Backgrounds are different, or even their families are different. So I think that's another thing, that not every solution fits with everyone. So I think really important before we do any program, I think that's a thing that in our team inside, we want to make sure we understand them clearly on what their needs is, and then finding that solution to make it fit in their life. So I think that's the two things for me.
Thank you very much. So we do have questions from the floor. If you could use the microphone, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations. Just following up on what the last speaker has talked about on dropouts, I would like to bring your attention to issues of immigrants and refugees and the challenges they can have in society if they are not engaged. I just want to ask, how accommodative are you in providing resources for these particular groups? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So actually, currently now, we're doing 130 pilot students around the country. Actually, the first group that we're helping is from juvenile centers. So that's the first group. The second group that we're aiming to help is teenagers who, what they call like pregnant before. So that's the second. And we're aiming also the third to kind of help also the immigrants as well. So currently now, to be honest, we haven't really worked with them yet. But in the future, as we're going to like triple and like growing more. So I think that's another group that will be helping, especially what we're discussing currently is in the north. So I think that's another challenge for us to also understand their needs. Currently, as shared, that's juvenile center kids, so means that would fit them. But at the end, next time I'm sharing, I might be another kind of curriculum that would help them as well. So to answer your question, that we haven't started yet, but we have the ambition of helping all of these kind of dropouts, not just only Curly that we're helping.
Thank you. I'm Romora from Prakerja Indonesia. I would like to ask all the speakers, but especially the speakers from EEF and KFC Foundation. First of all, I would like to ask about whether EEF are open to collaboration of financing from private sectors to finance the projects that EEF is currently conducting. And for the KFC Foundations, you mentioned the collaboration with EEF. Does it include financing EEF project, or is it just sharing the data of EEF members or users? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think the design of the EEF is really unique in the sense that kind of supports us in the collaboration with different parties, and including the private sector. So from the start, we have always been able to receive donations from private sectors, and we can provide them with twice the tax deductions of the amount that they donate to the EEF. And at the start, we have used a lot of our data, especially the work that we do in terms of targeting and identifying at-risk students, disadvantaged schools and areas, so that we can support these private sectors that want to create their own projects or want to contribute to certain areas, we work with them in providing this data so that we facilitate the work that the private sector wants to do in terms of their contribution to the education sector. The work that we do for the innovative finance is really to kind of build on to this kind of partnership. So also to provide them with the options of how they can kind of partner up with the EEF. So sometimes it's not always about providing the money. Sometimes it's like KFC, they want to be really engaged with the process. They want to be the service provider. They have the know-how, they have the tools, and they really want to use that knowledge and base that they have to kind of have a full contribution in terms of the equitable education agenda. Aside from that, those that want to help us in terms of scaling interventions, maybe they're more appropriate for us to work in a kind of partnership where innovative financing is more relevant. And so that's why we try to diversify and we try to work together with private sectors and using the data that we have in the organization to support these kind of designs so that it meets the needs of both parties, as well as the target group, of course.
Okay, so shortly, so for us as a KFC Foundation, we also support with the financial part as well. So the kickstart of all the students. So as mentioned, so that's being the full, but to top on that is actually the know-how, the skills that we provide. So it's two parts, funding as well, and also how to make it sustainable with our tools that we have in our store.
So unfortunately, we have come to the end of our session. Thank you very much, our panelists, for the insight information and the great work that you guys have been doing. And hopefully, we can continue discuss about innovative financing in many, many years to come. So please join me to give us applause to all of the panelists. ขอบคุณค่ะ
And also a big thanks to Khun Trinut as well for moderating the session. Please, let's have a brief group photo session together. Thank you. These wonderful four ladies have run such a wonderful contribution and session this morning. Thank you very much for your contributions. And just for all ladies and gentlemen, just for your information, if you haven't found your conference material yet, the materials are actually ready for everyone. You may just scan behind your badge. It's a QR code. There are 4 QR codes, and one of them is will give you the materials you may need. That's for the on-site attendees. And for online attendees, you may go to our website and go to document section, and you will find the materials there. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll be having a great time to lunch together just next door. And I'd like to ask for your kind cooperation to get back to this room